And welcome back. We are here for the third round of the quarterfinals here at the Master Series at QuakeCon. We are going to be watching Superthx go against Fafal. I think this is going to be a really, really fun matchup.
I agree. I'm really excited to see both these players play. They are both new to the Master Series big stage, but no stranger to competitive legends. Superthx in particular, I've seen all over the ladder, all over tournaments. Well-known, mostly aggro player, representing Rankstar, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. Superthx has won a lot of community tournaments, and if you watch any sort of competitive play for Legends, you should be very familiar with Superthx.
Yeah, you gotta love that little girl card. That card is super powerful, as well as Superthx, known for putting some less than truthful answers around there. But we can see Croatian from 24 years old. He has placed first in the Warp Meta weekly tournaments, rest in peace, 13 times.
That's a stat that almost looks fabricated, but it's real. Like, he actually won it that many times.
That is absolutely ridiculous. On the other hand, we have Fafal, someone who is new to the tournament scene. As far as I'm aware, does anyone know about his history?
I know he's played some of the community-held tournaments in the past, and I think he played in the Master qualifiers last year as well. And he's been a pretty well-known role player overall. He has placed top 100 on ladder before, reached Legend and Day 2, highest rank is number 2, for instance.
Yeah, and he won the last chance qualifier.
That's true,
yeah,
he did.
He did really well all season. And yeah, he does have a lot of other placements high in Warp Meta. He reached Legends for the fastest in Day 2, which is, yeah, like you said, really impressive. So I'm excited to see how he gets on.
Yeah, also a member of our Polish scene, which is actually very healthy. Have a lot of Polish players. They have a nice little community going on over there, as far as I'm aware. We have Superthx running down the deck list, the Aldmeri Dominion, the only person, as far as I'm aware, to bring that deck, if that's correct.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, also has the mid-battle mage, which we were seeing be relatively ubiquitous, a Dagoth, which is relatively fast, as well as a Tribunal build. What do you guys think about this lineup?
I'm a big fan of the Dominion list because it is very similar to like a mid Dagoth list, right? It has the ability to stabilize. You've got the presence of Drain. Battle Reeve in particular is a very powerful card, and aggressive mirrors. I'm a big fan.
And we can see this House Dagoth is sort of a mid-range deck, but also has a lot of those staple aggro cards. It has things like the Mournhold Trader for early pressure, things like the one-off Ashland Punisher. Silverfuse, what do you think about this Dagoth list?
I absolutely love mid-range Dagoth. I love Swiss Strike in it, just being able to play some of these bigger, beefier creatures and being able to finish someone off with being able to play the Swiss Strike. So if you have a 7-attack creature, all of a sudden it's a 14-attack creature, essentially.
CVH, if you could have one card for Superthx to steal with Razumdar, what would it be?
Ooh, I mean, that's just so tough. Superthx steals another Razumdar?
There we go. Yeah, it's just cats all the way down.
Absolutely. I mean, that's definitely the best thing.
And this Tribunal Temple list is really interesting because it's a very defensive mid-range list when you really look at it. It has those big guards like the Phalanx Exemplars and the Hive Defenders, and then we see the mid-battle mage list on the screen now.
Yeah, I've heard the Tribunal deck called proactive control and mid-range, and that's kind of the glory. You're a huge fan of all of those labels. But yeah, it can really go both ways. It can pressure another slow deck, but it can definitely also play as the control deck if it needs to.
Meanwhile, we can take a look at Fafal's decks, which are the Crusader. He has the Rage Guildsworn, as we saw, favorite card, Unstoppable Rage, an aggressive Halalu list, which we can see on screen now, as well as a Tribunal build of his own. What do we think that Fafal's list is really going to be bringing to this match that we should keep an eye on?
For me specifically, I think that he's done a good job of trying to straddle two different archetypes so that you can't target ban an entire archetype out of him. He's got two essentially aggressive lists and then two control lists. So if you're trying to say, okay, I want to get rid of one or the other.
This Crusader list is actually a control Rage Crusader, something that we haven't seen today, but that we have seen a good amount in the qualifiers, one that has a lot of life gain capability and can draw an absurd number of cards. Silver, how do you like these controlling Crusader lists?
I've seen Aini really popularize that, one of the really well-known players in the community, and seeing other people bring it to tournaments have done very, very well with it. We saw Boom's Life, I believe, bring Rage Crusader, and 3-0 Mortal August, another well-known player. So it's performed really well, so it doesn't surprise me that he brought that here.
And then we see that Fafal's list for Tribunal is pretty meaningfully different from the list that Superthx brought. What do you think is really the key distinction here between those two decks?
Well, I mean, he's clearly all in on the Atronachs. Again, we see Alpha Conjurers, we see Mighty Conjurings. Yeah, this is a deck, and it's much like the Guildsworn deck. A lot of those same cards carry over that enable you to pressure. But the top end is still higher than, say, QuakeCon's Aggro Crusader, so it looks like we're going to be seeing some longer games this match than we saw previously.
Do you think, or do you think maybe something like Superthx's Alberi Dominion is positioned well enough to pull a QuakeCon Jewel and go 3-0?
I don't think the Dominion list particularly is. I think that it's a little bit more mid-ish, but his Dagoth list could do it. His Dagoth list with the right start, I think, could plow right through every one of these.
Right on. Well, it sounds like our players are ready to join us on stage. Everyone, let's get ready to welcome them. Superthx and Fafal, please come on up here. And we have some more gentlemanly handshakes. I love that. It's just so nice to see everyone getting along before they try and destroy each other's hopes and dreams.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good day even if you get exited in the quarterfinals, but I'm sure we're about to see both of these players try their hardest on the big stage for the first time. Yeah, anyone have any predictions on bans? I'm sure we'll know momentarily.
That's a very good question. Charmer, let's start with you. You have one ban each. What are you looking to take away?
Tribunal.
Tribunal from both sides?
Yeah, absolutely. You don't want to play against that deck because you don't want to fall asleep before the tournament's over. So I think you go ahead and get rid of it.
Oh my God, Charmer, you're a prophet.
Firing shots.
We do, in fact, have Tribunal Temple banned from either side. CVH, I'm hearing you're shocked?
Well, I had both Tribunal decks queued up to look at, so I could just X out of those right now.
Don't you love when things come together?
Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah, I can't say I'm too surprised. Especially like on Fafal's side, he had his favorite class being Tribunal, his favorite card being Unstoppable Rage. That's a really upsetting combination of favorites to have. Like, I'm sure people are like, I hope he loses just because of his favorites. But yeah, the Tribunal is banned, so it looks like we're going to be seeing some slightly less resident sleeper matches.
So, okay, if those are the bans, that leaves 3 decks on either side. For each player, let's say one deck we're looking at to be the pivot deck, the one that you're looking to carry you in a bad situation. Charmer, if you're Superthx, which of those decks are you looking at?
If I'm Superthx, I think that the Dagoth list is the best one in this series for him. I think it matches up nicely against the other ones. And if I'm Fafal, for example, then I'm looking for Guildsworn to kind of carry me.
Right on, right on. So we're going to do that thing once again where I ask you guys the impossible question. Silver Fuse, who's going to win?
I have to say, Superthx I think is a bit favored. His past performances have just been extremely well. He's done so well in tournaments in the past. He's just performed well, so I'm going to have to say Superthx will take the win.
All right, we got one for Superthx. CVH?
I'm going to go with Fafal here, not just to contradict Silverfuse, but because I'm really excited to see that Rage Crusader. I think it's going to put in some work and might lead to him winning the match.
Not just to contradict Silverfuse, so partially to contradict Silverfuse.
Yes.
All right, Charmer, are you going to contradict Silverfuse as well?
No, I'm going to go with a 3-2 victory specifically for Superthx.
3-2, you think? So
Yeah.
you think there's going to be a lot of back and forth between these two players?
I do. I think that the Crusader list that Fafal has brought will at least steal a game, and I think that there are the potential for Superthx to draw the wrong half of his deck, but ultimately at the end, I think that his consistency is just going to win out here. He's a fantastic player.
Well, let's keep drilling down. You have a match prediction. Do you have a score prediction?
I'd say 3-2 as well. Just the way the decks line up, I'm not like, well, this one definitely is going to just kind of take it over, like where we saw QuakeCon Jewel. We're like, wow, that's going to be pretty tough to deal with.
3-2 as well.
However, the contrarian can't even say the word right. I'm going to say 3-1, just
3-1.
because I want to be a little bit different here. I don't really have any solid evidence to back that up, but I
So,
would really
so
feel bad taking your answer.
you're really going to publicly say that
yes.
Fafal is going to 3-1 one of the best tournament players in Legends right now?
But if I'm right, it's going to be pretty epic. So yeah, I'm going to say that.
All right, sure.
I'm not saying that means anything.
If you're right, then I'm bringing out conspiracies.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to break out the tinfoil hats after this match, which is about to begin. Casters, are you ready for this one?
I'm ready.
All right, I'm going to hand it off to you. Take it away, guys.
Let's do it. Come on, Fafal, don't steer me wrong here. Got to beat that side of the prediction table one of these days. All right, we have Fafal on the Guildsworn, and Superthx is starting things off with, is it Altmeri or is it Dagoth? It could be either at this point.
It's Dagoth.
It's Dagoth. There we go.
It's Dagoth. All right. So Fafal there, if you were paying attention, did actually mulligan a 2-drop, but as we mentioned before, Temple Conjurer is one of those tricky ones that's really a 5-drop, even though it says 2 in the corner, and Superthx top decks a great play here.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to see. But fortunately for Fafal, having come into the Rift Thane, both players still at 30, it's going to get that attack and represent a clean trade. Unless Superthx can come into something like a Ward Crafter or a Shrieking Harpy.
It does not find it, so now Superthx is going to have to make a decision. Do I do something like develop Daggerfall to potentially trade into this 2-1 that I'm going to have to give away in the future? Do I develop Oathman just to get a 4-4 on the board and maybe start pushing Shadow? I feel like conservatively the Daggerfall here is the right play.
Yeah, the Daggerfall will match up pretty well to the 2-1 Hornhold Guardian that'll come out when the Trader bites it momentarily.
I know here that Fafal did not find a Ward Crafter, which would have just blown out the field lane completely.
And there is Fafal's Guildsworn with Rages at the top end. Those of you watching at home. Very popular deck, second most popular class in today's tournament, right behind Battle Mage, which notably is absent from Fafal's lineup. He's running Guildsworn, but no Battle Mage. He's one of 2 players to not bring it.
Now, this is a very interesting play, and I say that just because you're not developing a further threat. I thought for sure we might see the Ashlander, and against Guildsworn, you have to assume they're going to have a source of 1 damage to trade there, whether it's in the form of the Rapid Shot here, or not this particular one, but other ones might run something like Skaven.
Yeah, that's A-okay with Fafal. His deck aims to take it a lot slower than the Dagoth deck. So he's fine with the clear board, and whatever he develops now is going to be the only threat present. And maybe he'll be able to use that to take over the field lane.
The fighter's will stands ever ready.
Plays properly, plays the card draw first in case you draw something else you want to play.
Yeah, and I think this is important that Fafal has the ring, not so much based on his plays, but just so Superthx does not have the ring. Dagoth with the ring could be very scary indeed, and that's limiting the options Superthx has moving forward.
And because Superthx decided to play that Tome last turn, and ultimately got his board wiped as a result, he's now looking to get a footing, right? You have to reestablish your game plan. How do I get threats on the board? You have this Cliff Racer, but if you're playing that, you're not doing anything else. You're just saying, I want 4 damage. I'm not necessarily convinced that's correct. So if you play something like Punisher, which is the option that they're going to take, it's okay, but you just don't feel good about not spending all of your Magicka at this stage.
Yeah, really not finding too many pairs to play here, and even so, like, being able to play the 2-3s next turn, those are 2-3-3s. It's a pretty low tempo play overall.
And we see here Fafal not going in for even a small amount of damage. If you're wondering why, a lot of these slower control decks use a lot of breakthrough-oriented creatures. Fafal has cards like Mighty Conjuring, things that have breakthrough, and he doesn't want to be forced to accidentally break runes later in the game and give Superthx additional cards through the rune break.
All right, so Superthx increases our Elfbeat counter for the day. What are we up to now?
Dude, I don't even know.
4.
Someone between games told me I miscounted, so if you say it's 4, yeah, they said I missed one, so it's 4 and or 5. We'll go with 5.
All right.
Someone
5.
they were probably right there. So we're gonna call it 5.
All right, so it's a
Margin of
pride
error.
of kitties. And finally, Superthx draws blood, gets to go on the offensive here because Fafal had developed Iron last turn, and it's not looking good. Superthx gets the damage in, but when you look at Fafal's hand here, this is just a fistful of defensive options, a pair of executes, javelin, unstoppable rage.
Yeah, it's pretty terrifying. Rage represents a board clear. You know, even with the iron, it's not like the greatest target for the rage, but it will clear up whatever Superthx decides to play in the shadow lane. Superthx is maybe thinking, can I use some of these creatures in my hand to maybe stand a fighting chance in the field lane?
Yeah, he's in the pickle because he needs to take back field lane, but doing so means sacrificing resources and not getting damage in, and the longer the game goes, the more it favors Fafal.
Yeah, and even though the Guildsworn Apprentice there is going to actually not block, it's not going to trade with anything. It is going to sink some damage into it.
Yeah. So you have to take back field lane here, but the other reason that you have to do it is because Unstoppable Rage is a card. If you load up that shadow lane, you know that Fafal's just going to end up clearing absolutely everything. So Superthx here doing the best he can to find that footing, but
Check it out, this Mighty Conjuring, potentially devastating, right? Like, it is active. Iron has 5 power or more, so he gets the full, God, which Atronach is it? Lava Atronach.
yeah, he gets
That's
the
name
Lava
of it.
Atronach, and it's going to be buffed because of Luzra. That allows Luzra to trade, take control of the field lane. I have a hard time believing that Superthx is going to be able to come back from that particular play.
Yeah, it's a really rough spot. Fafal's still at 18 health. That is a very comfortable spot. And there's also a lot of just ways to recover in this deck as well on top. Like, he's already doing a great job, but there's plenty of drain to be able to find as well.
So just to be on the safe side, he's going to load up another guard in the shadow lane. A lot would have needed to happen for Superthx to stand a chance there. He would have needed, you know, some combination of silence plus a buff, like a battle mace plus a swift strike, and the magic is just not there.
Yeah, but I do like Fafal playing it conservative there. The Magicka might not have been there for Superthx to win, but as you said, if he would have combined something like an Earthbone Spinner and even just a Battle Mace, then that could have cut his life total in half. And with no access to drain in hand, that's kind of a scary prospect. So I do like Fafal taking the conservative route, making sure nothing's going to get out of control over there.
So here we go.
Oh.
Alfie Contra now in his hand as well with the Luzera on board. That's what we mentioned earlier. Now he has this this huge breakthrough Atronach in the shadow lane. If he wanted to use that to take a trade here, it might look good on paper, but he's given his opponent 2 cards there. But Fafal's probably looking for a way to clean up this board and potentially set up for a victory next turn with some type of rage plus attacks.
Theoretically, I think if he wants, Fafal has lethal here, assuming you hit no prophecies. Because you've got
you're right.
19 on board with another 9. Yeah, I think you're going to be like 1 off. Because Unstoppable Rage is worth 9, right? So technically that Atronach by itself is representing 19 damage there. It was very, very close.
Yeah, I like pushing some damage here too, knowing that you're pretty safe at 17.
Yeah, I mean,
There's
it is very
definitely
clear. It's very easy to clear with you know, Javelin plus Fusionik perhaps, and you can just sort of set up for next turn. Daggerfall, I mean, Dagoth can come up with 17 damage, but not from a clear board.
My archers
Gonna go with the spinner instead. I thought for sure we'd see the Javelin just to be safe, but
Yeah, he's conserving the Javelin. Both would get by a guard, but still behind the 3-3, and with Superthx's current hand, I don't think Fafal has anything to worry about.
Yeah, I can see waiting for some of the larger threats too, knowing that you can just get rid of them, and then they won't be able to trade with your threats in the future as well. So just Earthbone Spinner on making it a 3-2.
But this Cradle Crush Giant is not going to stand up well. I said Cradle Crush Giant, Candlehearth Brawler. That's the C1. Yeah, with ample damage, Fafal's just looking for the best way to close this out.
Yeah, it looks like Prophecy Harpy would be the one thing to stop the lethal here, and we're not going to see that.
Yep, bypasses the rune and hits with the Atronach
Not gonna
for
see
the
it.
win.
Fafal goes up 1-0 in the series.
Yeah, that was a really impressive showing from Guildsworn. Doing a lot of the same kind of things we see from Battle Mage decks. You expect Guildsworn to continue to show, you know, to be that powerful throughout the day. Do you think people were right in valuing it so high for these tournaments?
I do. Like I said before, Guildsworn is the kind of deck that you have to draw the right cards, but it has a game plan against everything, right? You're never out of the game. You always have the chance to win. So it's the kind of deck that is capable of sweeping a series, and that's why so many players brought it, and so many players are afraid of it.
Yeah. So now we have Superthx. His Dagoth is gone. He's down to Altmeri and Battle Mage. What do you think he queues up? What is the best against the Guildsworn? Silverfuse, do you have an idea?
I think I'd go with the Battle Mage. Just try to get your mid-range threats out faster, more consistently, and try to take over that way.
Yeah, we'll see if he does that. That'd be a very interesting matchup as both decks share a lot of the same cards, like the Lava Atronachs we were seeing. We will see what Superthx decides to queue with. Again, since this is last class standing, Fafal winning on Guildsworn, he is forced to queue it again for the chance to 3-0 with it. And he's going to try to eliminate Superthx's entire lineup. I hope we actually see that Altmeri deck, honestly, because I'm a sucker for those decks that you don't see in any other lineup. I think the Empire deck performed really well in the first quarterfinal.
And you'll get it.
Yes.
So Superthx is going with the Dominion list and has another Mournful Trader start. This time, no Rift Thane on the side of Fafal.
Yeah, really a clunky hand with the 2 rages.
Yeah, I mean, he loves Rage, but I'm sure he doesn't love them that much to open with 2 of them. Superthx actually starting in the Shadow Lane, not something we see a whole lot of. Why do you think that is? He doesn't have any movement.
Yeah, that's a great question. That might be the sort of thing that we will have to ask him about later.
Yeah.
Because it's not like you're fearing charge creatures early on. That's, you know, if you're okay, they might charge into my Mournful Trader. Nothing this early is going to take out a 4/4. So it's interesting.
Yeah, my thought is maybe just trying to get him to chase into the shadow, even with something like Rift Thane, and then be able to pivot to the field lane instead.
Yeah, that makes an awful lot of sense. When your first game, you essentially got forced out of the field lane, which we know is very important because of a Rift Thane answer. Maybe you said, okay, if they have the answer this time, I still want to be able to develop in the field lane, and that left the opportunity.
Superthx going with the Elder Gleam Matron for a random animal over the Corner Club Gambler.
We must protect our stronghold.
And pulls a Frenzy to Lit. Kind of a small boy, but maybe impactful. And this Douche Nikal Archer threatens to take a trade, but we see the Cloud Rust Illusionist, which is going to start developing the field lane for Superthx. Give him a much better trade, allow him to start pushing some damage.
Yeah, that was a very, very impactful Cloud Rust Illusionist. High tempo play, you get rid of their threat, you develop another one of your own. Fafal now plays yet another big guard. This Exemplar has kind of risen in popularity recently.
Oh, that's a big prophecy. Harpy's going to come down. Field lane, shadow lane? Field lane.
I like the field lane because you have that rapid shot, so you can use that to trade into the Cloud Rest while cycling next turn. That makes an awful lot of sense.
Yeah, really having the low tempo at the beginning for Fafal, and then the prophecy here is very helpful. Can regain a lot here. Just being able to shackle this, take the 4 attack away, set up the trade in the future as well. It was a really critical prophecy for him here.
Yeah, it really sort of dictates where Superthx is kind of allowed to play cards now. If he wants to play East March in the field lane, he's probably going to have to Harpy down the Harpy, but that doesn't feel too great. Yeah, this is kind of a tricky spot now, because of course, Fafal also plays cards like Escape and Pyromancer, which could be very huge if you decide to place a creature in just the wrong spot.
Care to make a friendly wager?
Frenzy to Lit bites it. As soon as it was there, it was gone.
And the Harpy, the Harpy on the Harpy, which makes an awful lot of sense. If your opponent develops a Harpy in the field lane and it's not something that can trade right away, then you have to put them on having some sort of 1 damage source.
Yeah, this Shadow Lane's getting pretty hairy because Mournful Trader is not long for this world. It's going to give him a second guard. But there is 8 damage already represented field lane, and the Dominion Oathman can, of course, deal another 2 damage as long as Superthx has a intelligence card on the board. Charmy, you alright? This is very tricky for Fafal. He has 5 Magicka remaining. He could play... You know, he has Iron available, he has Execute and Rapid Shot, which he could make free. Rift Thane is in guard mode now.
Crusader's Assault isn't going to help him this turn. Develops the Iron. Looks like he'll find the Rapid Shot, believing that it was his only option, just to get rid of those 4-2 on board.
Yep, he trades the ring, but Iron's very efficient, allows him to double Rapid Shot there, get the draw and the kill.
I'm very surprised that he didn't also use that free Execute to save the Exemplar, because you could have also taken out the Harpy. Perhaps he really wants to save it for Daggerfall Mage specifically, but protecting your big body guard, I think, is worth the execute there.
I would say so too. Even more so, Daggerfall Mage doesn't matter as much when Superthx does have plenty of resources. If he was much lower on cards, you'd be more worried about that tome coming down.
You bet.
But
Wrong side.
wow.
Oh,
Prophecy
another
number 2.
prophecy slowing down Superthx.
Yeah, you hate to see that if you're Superthx. I mean, at least he can start playing his big voice like Alfie Conjurer now. And that, to be fair, that is 1 Javelin down. So it's less likely he'll have it in the future.
Yeah, this is an interesting. This is an interesting position because Alfie Conjurer maybe in the Shadow Lane makes an awful lot of sense, or you could develop 2 3-drops. You've got cards like East March and Corner Club yet again if you really wanted to just keep flooding your hand trying to find answers, but it's hard to pass up Alfie, and our kitty counter is going to go up by 1 yet again.
Oh, here we go. Yep, we're at 6 now.
Yeah.
And it's only a Flame Atronach.
And seeing that kind of odd turn with the Rapid Shot, Iron Rapid Shot, let Superthx know that maybe there isn't card removal in the hand right now. So being able, a little more comfortable playing the Alfie here.
If I was Fafal and I had taken that extra 4 damage, I would feel very uncomfortable with the situation right now. That Javelin was really huge.
Yeah, this Lava Atronach is equally huge, however, because we know Fafal's favorite card is Unstoppable Rage due to the player cards when we do the intros, and that means Superthx has to think that it's coming.
It's important to note here, there is no Peninsular Lotus agent in this deck. So this Lava Atronach is very, very powerful in this matchup.
Yeah, it's really like a Nasi or bust. But even here, it looks like Superthx has 10 damage available to him. He could break through for 4 on the 2-1 with the Flame Atronach. And he has Cliff Racer and the Dominion Oathman. So if he were at putting Fafal at 10 in a previous turn, it might even be game over.
Yeah,
Barring a 3rd Prophecy.
I was going to say, that Prophecy Javelin was a very, very big deal. The Prophecy Harpy was a big deal. And yet, Superthx is still trying to find a line to finish this off. So it does take them down to 10. Have to imagine we're going to see some development in the field lane here now as well.
I mean, he is pretty far from losing the game himself. He needs to watch out for those rages, though. That rage on the Atronach in the Shadow Lane is already threatening a lot of damage. 4 + 7 + 8.
Now, I love this development by Superthx. You're basically saying, okay, if you answer my Shadow Lane, then you also have to find a way to deal with the field lane. The guard protects, hopefully, this East March so that it can at least attack for 4, and then you only need to find 2 damage when you count that Cliff Racer if you're Superthx. Now, he's been holding on to this Dominion Oathman for a while. That could very well end up being the source of 2 damage.
Careful there, friend.
Going for Wardcrafter on Iron to take a favorable trade, keep it alive at 1 health. And this is why Fafal doesn't deal early damage, because he's worried about trades like that otherwise would have broken a rune.
And it is important to note that Rifting will also be in guard mode, assuming that there's a good chance it comes down just to be a little bit extra safe.
Yeah, instead we see the Hive Defender, that dapper defender in the suit, gumming things up. Oh, that's a really big top deck for Superthx.
It has the ability to kind of run through the shadow now. Fafal, only being an 8 magic on next turn, won't be able to play a creature and then rage it. So that makes this where the shadow is kind of Superthx's now.
So the Dominion Oathman coming down now to make sure he gets the drain and the ping of 2 damage. All of a sudden, Fafal's at 7. And 6 magic at a go. What is he going to use it on?
I mean, I think you're going to develop a pair of 3-cost cards. The Dominion makes sense because you get the summon effect that puts him at 6.
Yeah, and he gets rid of the Elder Gleam Matron, which might have been really good to keep if he knew he was going to get something with charge, but it seems like the safe plan. And this is it's a very tough thing to deal with right now. There really isn't a clean answer to either of these.
Khajiit will keep you safe.
From Fafal's side, I have to assume Conjurer is just here for the guard, and Rift Thane will likely end up being the follow-up play. So it's going to come down to what does Superthx get off of this Corner Club Gambler?
Several cards. Dawnbreaker. I think
What?
that's going to do it.
What a top deck. That will absolutely get it done. Cliff Racer will make the trade. Dawnbreaker will let the Battle go over the top, and just like that, Superthx ties up the series 1-1, and in my opinion, just masterfully navigated that matchup. It really looked for a while like Fafal was going to get control of things, and Superthx hung in there, waited till he found the right cards. Beautiful win.
Yeah, Dominion is very scary because it can just pack on the damage unexpectedly. Like even the little 1 damage pings from the Battle Reeve or the 2 damage from the Oathman, those add up very quickly, and all the cards it plays are very cheap in cost, so you really don't need to have a lot of Magicka to start piling on the damage. That's exactly what we saw at the end with good old Dawnbreaker, which might no longer get rid of Undead, but it still is 4 damage immediately. Turns out that's mostly all you need.
Yeah, I mean, 4 for 4 is kind of the standard when it comes to burst, right? You think about things like Battle Mace, you think about Lightning Bolt. Dawnbreaker is still 4 for 4. It's still a worthy inclusion in your aggressive lists.
Absolutely. And now we're going to see Fafal pivot over to the Control Crusader, the only one of its kind in the tournament, to take on Superthx5's aggro minion, the only one of its kind in the tournament. So these two decks might never meet again, and I'm really curious to see how this matchup pans out.
Yeah, it's interesting. This Crusader deck is running Queen's Captain, which is from the Moons of Elsewhere expansion, and
Yes, it
I
is.
think it's the only deck that's running it as well, too.
Yeah, I think so.
Of
Queen's
course, I'm
Captain,
on your
the Wax and Wane, either gets rid of a creature or it draws you 2 cards, depending on the turn. So we'll see if that comes down for Fafal at any point.
Citizen.
Curious to see if there's ever a chance where he gets kind of screwed on a play because it's the wrong turn. But it is a very interesting card. And again, Fafal playing his one of his favorite cards, Unstoppable Rage, as expected.
Well, apparently Superthx has a favorite card, and its name is Mournhold Trader, because that is 3 for 3. I'm playing that on turn 2 so far in this series.
I will stir
Yeah,
your
maybe even a
heart.
bigger deal. This Corner Club Gambler again, no real answer to it from Fafal's side. So it's going to be drawing a full grip of cards for Superthx.
And this Cloud Resolutionist this turn is incredibly strong. Being able to keep the threat alive while removing one of Fafal's is, and we see his hand too. There's just not many options here, unless the Rapid Shot finds something.
There was a time when Cloud Rest stopped seeing quite as much play, but with all of these really board-centric battles for the field lane that are going on, Superthx is still a believer.
You bet.
Interesting. Instead opting for just a big body, playing a Hive Defender. And I'm okay with this game plan. If you play the Cloud Rest, you do take out a threat and you develop a more aggressive creature, but it's also more likely to be answered, right? This Hive Defender with 6 health does a great job of trying to protect your other threats while also getting a presence here. I like this line.
I
Yep.
do too. Plays around escape a little bit better too.
Rapid Shot just for the kill, and then a Grey Viper on the board. So both of those creatures together can hopefully answer the Hive Defender. But now it looks like it might be time for good old
I'll
Cloud
try to
Rest.
draw their
And
fire.
even found the 1-drop return with it.
Another masterful draw from Superthx. Just what the doctor
Hey,
ordered.
he's being rewarded for playing 1-drops.
It's true. I mean, you include them in your deck for a reason. It's either on turn 1 or to fill out your curve later. And it's doing that job perfectly right now.
Fafal drawing a 1-cost card of his own on his turn. This is an execute. You theoretically could use this to take out a Quartermaster, but that just doesn't feel great.
Yeah, he technically could clear the whole board here if he chose to do so, but using an execute to kill a 2/1 isn't really what you want to use. Once again, we talked about Daggerfall being one of the prime targets of execute.
So
And-
Jab's not the Hive Defender.
Yeah, we're in this very interesting situation because both players are still at 30. One of them is on a control deck, and they have a lot less cards in hand than the other player.
Yeah, that's not really how the control deck usually stays at 30. But Corner Club Gambler did a lot, and this board would be something that would theoretically be weak to Rage, but it's just too early. And Fafal first needs to find creatures to stick.
Well, he bounces the Flame Atronach, so our kitty, and if you're keeping track, CVH, yes, our kitty counter did go
Oh,
up again.
Thank you so much.
I'm reminding you.
I should just pass this off to you. You're way better at keeping track of these than I am.
Kitty Remains finally draws first blood as far as the runes go, gets Fafal down to 24, and Superthx develops Baron here simply because it's a 4-6. He knows that Fafal wasn't going to be breaking his runes anytime soon anyway, so this is just all about getting a big body on the board.
That was a brutal draw for Fafal. Execute just dead weight right now. I mean, you might be able to use one if your opponent finally plays a Daggerfall Mage, but really there's nothing else to do, and you really don't want to see the second one right here.
Yeah, I assume there's a chance here that we just see the Rapid Shot cycle here. I mean, there's the option for the Piercing Javelin, Ravenous Hunger, but really these giant bodies are just really hard for Fafal to deal with here besides these Piercing Javelins. You see him shake his head saying, no, that's not what I was looking for. I can't play anything besides remove a creature, and this is still 7 damage staring down at my face.
Yeah, Superthx is in a pretty commanding position because not only does he have great control of the board, but when you look at his hand, he has a lot of flexible answers. Anasi in particular is a nightmare in this matchup.
Yeah. Too bad Jason isn't here to give his thoughts on Anasi.
Didn't see this coming, eh? Chimera
So there's the crushing blow that Fafal no doubt wishes he had for Corner Club Gambler, and the Divine Fervor is going to make Daggerfall a 3-power creature, so not even now can Fafal find an answer or find a use for this execute. These pair of executes.
It's important to note there that we saw an attack, and then Divine Fervor, and then an attack, so that this extra room wasn't broken.
Yeah, that's a really heads-up attack order from Superthx. And looking at his deck, he doesn't have any creatures that have a base power of 1. No mud crabs even, so it looks like the Divine Fervor is just going to prevent execute from being playable.
And there is one Dushnagel Archer in, so there's a chance that Fafal could find that, but it being a 1 of 50, the chances are low.
In a quest to play execute this game, Anasi now not really fearing a Lava Astronaut because it's not really able to be procced.
Oh, this is how we can play execute if he decides to hold this. So he has to decide, do I want to be able to make a trade one way? But, I mean, you could kill the Anasi if you were to hold this Cloudress Illusionist.
That's interesting, yeah. But, I mean, if he plays it, he could attack it, which I'm sure he's thinking of too.
Yeah, but attacking actually doesn't
think
really
it's
clear out
actually
the
worse.
board very well. I think this is a heads-up play to put this in hand.
And
Alright.
Superthx probably knows that that is the prophecy. That was a pretty tough decision overall, so seeing Fafal not be like, woo, prophecy, time to play it.
So the heads-up answer, if you put your opponent on that, I think you'd consider developing the tome here.
Yeah, I mean, the only 2 prophecies in Fafal's deck appear to be Piercing Javelin and Cloudress Illusionist, and I don't think you'd ever hold the Javelin there. It's a pretty clean kill.
Yeah, I mean, you could make the argument that the tome is an okay play. I still like developing the body, but if you wanted to, you could have played the tome there just to really push Anasi out, but then you were on the risk of getting blown out by a Javelin at that point, so I like this play by Superthx. Don't take the bait.
Yeah, I really like it because he can save his items as basically burst damage. You know, if something sticks, he can add 6 points of damage to whatever's on the board at any time with the Tome and the Dawnbreaker. Playing it now just to let the creature die, not peak value, but we are going to see a new target now for the Cloudress Illusionist Execute combo, and Crushing Blow finally helps him clear.
Taking care of the Shadow Lane here because knowing he can contest the field with the body, I do
That's
like
game.
taking care of it.
That top deck
Yes.
means you can skip both runes.
Wow, perfect Magicka, 14 damage in Nazi.
Well, we saw it last year. We're seeing it again this year. Anasi taking a game.
Yeah, it did.
In the Masters
the
Series.
stealing of the keywords was good, but the fact that it's already such a big body too, and just so resilient, 14 damage in a single turn, couldn't really play around that. He knew he had the Tome, but counting for the Dawnbreaker too, I'm gonna give Dawnbreaker the credit. Actually, that's the
I
last 2
have to give
games.
it the Dawnbreaker myself as well. Just
It's
the
really hard
burst
to play
from
around
hand.
it. Yeah, that's very impressive, and notably, there is only 2 lightning bolts in that Aldmeri Dominion deck, so Dawnbreaker kind of functions as that extra way to deal 4 damage. You have lightning bolts, you have cliff racers, you have the Dawnbreaker, and like we said earlier, a bunch of other ways to deal damage. But now all he has to do is defeat Fafal's Plalu deck, which I believe was, that's unbanned because both of the tribunal decks were banned, so the players are taking a look at the deck list, trying to get prepared. Superthx has to win with either Aldmeri or his Battle Mage, which he still has up in case the Aldmeri loses. And there's the Hualu deck with a start of triple 1-cost cards. Is that what you're looking for? Like, are you okay with that? Like, you have scimitars and things to equip them to. It's not. You could do worse for sure.
I mean, you could have pit lions in your hand. We've seen that happen a few times. generally, if we
Our
have these
foes
really
will
low-cost
have
starts, you're
nightmares.
reliant on finding your resource extension, finding East March Crusader and your Crusader's Assault. So you can run out of steam really
Did you hear
quickly
that?
if you don't draw your resource extension.
Yeah, and there is a mercenary captain, a card Fafal is playing 3 of, I believe.
Wow, 3 of. So
Well,
that's very interesting to me. Mercenary Captain is a card that I really like, but I honestly think that its sweet spot is as a 1 of, maybe a 2 of tops.
no, he's playing 3. I checked the list.
And the reason that I feel this way about Mercenary Captain is that on curve, it's not often a great play because you need to have played something and had it die, and then you need likely at least 2 other bodies on the board as well, and doing that just makes it a 4/4's worth of stats, right? So you're paying 4 to get a 4/4, which isn't that great. It's at its best when you're drawing it later and you have a developed board that you can really take advantage of, and so I'm surprised that it's a 3 of.
Can I mention
Similar
here
to
that,
Divine Fervor in a lot of ways.
yeah, Fafal's play there was really the I hope he doesn't have Gavel of the Ordinator, because if he does, I might just lose the game on the spot kind of thing. He was just saying, all right, I'm going to use all of these cards to take over the field lane. If Gavel sees play here, then we might have a problem. And there are 2 in the Eldmary deck. And also, Fafal's playing 3 of that card, too. Gavel.
Yeah, in many ways, you could say it's I hope he doesn't have it, but it was also, what else are you really going to do there? Feffel's options were pretty limited.
Yeah, you don't want to be
So-
forced into the Shadow Lane on turn 1.
Does a good job.
Super thinks here not having a 3-drop, so going to have to settle for one of the 2 drops instead.
Where does it go?
Da da dee da.
So goes with a Luzra. I think this is just long-term planning. He's saying, okay, if they take the trade here, then my Harpy can finish this off. But this is kind of what I'm talking about with Mercenary Captain. Like, you could play this right now, but that's a 4 magic of 3/3 right now. Just does not feel good. Captain is at its best when you're playing it much, much later, in my opinion.
And saving the Scimitar for some flexibility later, too.
Have business with House Halalu.
Both players playing pretty quick because they haven't really had too many options. Both decks are kind of drawn where, yeah, you can play a card on this turn, but not a ton of decisions overall, I would say.
Yeah.
Compared to what we usually see in these aggro versus aggro matchups or aggro versus range matchups.
And Fafel here taking advantage of the charge of the Cliff Racer to remove a threat. Again, trying to make sure I maintain control of this field lane. This is one of those great games where it kind of highlights that you can play aggressive decks, but it's not all about just racing your opponent, right?
Did you know Cliff Racers occasionally screech when they're close?
Yeah, I did, yeah. I remember that very unfondly.
Yeah.
From
From 10 seconds ago, even.
But this is really interesting, right? Because we're at a point where most players still have 30 health, but they're on aggressive lists. It's all about controlling this field lane because you don't want your opponent to snowball. So I think that this is one of those great example games that kind of showcases that just because you play an aggressive deck does not mean that it is, a mindless, I play a creature, I attack my opponent, I play a creature, I attack my opponent. There are great ways to navigate these matchups.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you play an item
Sometimes.
and then attack after that. Yeah.
Sometimes you play 3.
Guards, to me.
Ooh, the Queen Baronzaya off the top.
Have business
One of the
with
most
House
back-breaking
Halalu.
cards to see. It's like
Oh, wow.
and the Cruel Fire Bloom. That's wow. These 0-cost cards, those are quite good here. And there's no answer for the Queen. That's going to gain him a ton of life.
Yeah, it's going to be a very effective queen. Now, we are going to see the captain come down here, but again, like I was mentioning, captain is essentially a 4 Magicka 4/4. Well, it's going to be a 5/4 because of 5th Legion, but this is, not necessarily the kind of captain that you were hoping to play.
There's a lot of other cards that if you were to swap them out, you would be happier seeing those cards.
We're going to see Fafal does not decide to go in. He's saying to himself, well, Superthx is going to gain at least 6 life back immediately anyway, so I'm not really going to be able to put him on any sort of clock here.
We see that the Nazi, probably not going to be played here, but just in the future of being able to push that last bit of damage could be very, very important.
Yeah, we'll see if a Nazi can steal something with charge.
Now, if you want to take the proactive trade here, I was just going to say, I feel like you almost wanted to do that trade first because that guarantees the queen would have been the one that got the dagger.
My
But
business is none of
I just push the
theirs.
damage here too.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think with the dagger landing on the cliff racer now, I think you just take the damage.
Cool, Fire Bloom hits the field lane, so both of these creatures are going to stay alive to fight another day.
Anasi finds it useful to use her enemy's
And he's just going to
strength
throw everything on the
against
board, saying, my
Yeah.
opponent's on aggro
I was gonna
Halalu
say,
and has no answer.
Halalu has no answer to this field lane. You are at 12 health. That is
Awful out of options very quickly here.
how you assert dominance.
So with only Cliff Racer in hand, he can only remove the opposing Cliff Racer. And that still leaves 15 points of damage on Superthx side.
Essentially hoping for a Cloud Illusionist.
Yeah, that's the only thing that could actually do it here. There are 3 Cloud Rusts in the deck, so it's not the most unreasonable thing to hope for, but you know, it doesn't feel good to have to hinge your tournament life on the Cloud Rust Prophecy.
And the reality is you're likely only even going to get 1 rune because you have the option for Queen to skip the second one if you top deck 1 damage, right? So
True,
if you find
yeah.
a source of 1 damage, if you get something like your Battle Reeve, for example, or Crown Quartermaster, you can very easily skip that second rune. So this is a dangerous position.
And even if you survive, the Queen is still always going to be attacking next turn and gaining some amount of health, and you're still going to have a lot to clear on the following turn.
Just seeing what his top deck was at this point is what it kind of sees. Looking
Yeah,
for a
and
Mark
he takes,
Man or something.
takes the concession. So congratulations, Superthx.
3 games to 1, so I had the score right, but
You had
I
the
had it
score right?
reversed.
Yeah.
That was very impressive.
What? I mean, what do you say about Superthx at this point, right? It feels like every time he queues up for a tournament, he just seems to win.
Yeah, just incredible, just consistency all around, over and over again. Was just well known for just kind of be like, all right, he's at a tournament, and it looks like he won it.
Yeah, and that Almeri deck too, we see again a deck that no one else brought to the tournament, performing incredibly well over the course of the entire match. Very
So,
excited to see it.
3-1 for Dominion. I mean, I think we expected this deck to do well, but we even called out before the match we didn't expect it to do well enough to clean sweep. What do we think about that?
Dominion's good.
Turns out.
Yeah. Queen Baron Zaya's good. Dawnbreaker's good. Anasi's good. And I get to play them all in the same deck. I mean, I don't, but he does. And it's working out pretty well so far. So we'll see if it continues in the semifinals.
Yeah, I like that there was a lot of redundant effects in that deck. There were a lot of sources of reach, a lot of sources of combat tricks. If there's any one sort of a function, if you will, that you think really got that deck to do what it did, what do you think it would be? Do you think the combat tricks really just let you keep field lane control well enough?
I think it's a combination of the combat tricks and then the reach. Being able to strike for like half my opponent's health at any given time is a very scary thing that you can do, right? Because your opponent is not feeling safe if they're at 16 health. They start making plays they wouldn't normally play or don't want to do. They take trades they may not have want to take it just because they're afraid of losing all of their health in one go. Like it kind of dictates the pace just by threatening what it can do.
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing a couple of these highlights now. Superthx having lots of ways to get through these big guards. And we saw it several times over the course of this series. Alfeet Conjurer, effectively a 3-4 guard for 6 Magicka.
Yeah, over and over again, we've been saying it today. Yeah, it's a powerful card, but the way you combat it is by making it feel lackluster at the time you play it, right? Alfeet Conjurer is all about future value. You're playing it to get a lot of stats on the board.
It's an investment.
Right, it's an investment. And so if you can punish them for investing it, it's very similar to like when somebody plays a support card. That's like, okay, they've played that support card, they want long-term value from it. I'm going to punish them for having taken that route. And you can do the same things with Alfeet Conjurer.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are joined on stage by Superthx himself. 3-1 victory. How does that feel moving on from the quarterfinals?
Yeah, it feels good. It's a lot of money upgraded for the price, and I'm happy that the deck that I adopted the most was performing well, which is the Minion.
Yeah, so you are the only player that brought Dominion, performed very, very well for you. Tell me, what was it that made you want to bring the Dominion list in specific?
So, as you can see from the second game that I won, I had just endless cards. I was never running out, and opponent ran basically. If you don't give them any value trades, you just get ahead on board and you can get the little. And in the last game, right, we got kind of to a stalemate, and nobody went face. And if he went face, I would find heals and cards and overrunning him. Whereas when I decided to go face against him, his deck doesn't have defense. He cut a lot of the cards from the standard value lists and doesn't have a lot of tempo, so he was just not able to defend right after I started pushing him.
That makes a lot of sense. So the community is very, very high on Alfie Conjurer right now.
Yep.
One of those cards that everyone says is overpowered, omnipresent, and 44 copies of it are in the tournament right now. How do you feel about the card, and do you think that maybe we're seeing some of its weaknesses when it's just played as a guard that can pretty easily be gotten through?
Well, no. I mean, yeah, the card has the mostly weakness to a 4/4, which is a state line that a lot of mid-range decks like Archer and Dagot. So I think that also, but the card is a bit too strong, right? You should never summon a Storm Matronach. That thing is too big for 6 mana, you know. I don't know. I think it's fine because the meta has changed, but I don't know for how long will people be happy with the card in the game, right?
Makes sense.
In this state.
Any other questions from the desk?
Is there a particular opponent, because you know you're moving on, but
Yeah.
the next match
I'm
has yet to
terrified
play.
of
Is there a particular opponent that you want to see?
Nope. Yeah, I just don't want to see Tilder. I'm scared shitless of him.
Makes sense. Thuldir, really good player. You're not alone in thinking that. Well, thank you very much for joining us on stage. Congratulations on moving into the next round, and we'll see you later.
Right.
All right, well, that is round 3 in the books. We're going to go to a quick break. Don't go anywhere. We are going to get into match 4 as soon as we are back.